Star versus Nantrix. We're gonna vote on Treasure Island. Thank you for the follow. Alright, so over here we have everybody's favourite caster, Starofknight, going on his hunt straight away. He's the red Romans player today. And we have Nantrix, the yellow Egyptian player. Pretty new player, but he's got a lot of Age of Empires 2 experience. And I think he's played a couple of the other games in the series a little bit. He's picked up the game really fast, actually. It's quite nice. So he's already going to go for double storehouse. Pretty safe, somewhat slow opening, but Starofknight's doing the same. Because, I mean, it is a water map, so they're going to probably want to jump on that pretty quickly, or try and age up quickly to be able to get as much out of the land instead. I mean, aging up is what's going to let them have access to the warships. So with those warships, they'll be able to contest this big patch of water, and there's even this little island. It's generally got 2 gold and 2 stone mines, and enough space to fit a wonder or some other stuff. I'm actually getting a call from my dad right now, so I'll have to jump off after this game, I'm afraid, guys, because it's my turn to fetch lunch today. Anyway, we've got our players getting enough resources for Age 2. Not going to be any early aggression, no barracks to speak of from either player. Stone mine on the way from Nantrix. So there is one little thing we do have to teach him, and that's putting everything 1 tile back, because then you can fit villagers in and gather a little bit more effectively. I don't think it's really something Age of Empires 2 players worry about, but I know Age of Mythology and that sort of thing, they often tend to worry about that sort of stuff. Age of Empires 4, I know buildings always have a tile in between the building and the edge of the collision when you're placing it, so it happens naturally. But yeah, in AOEO, you've actually got to make sure you basically line everything up 1 tile back for efficient gathering, because as you can see, these villagers are off to the side, so it's not a problem for them. But this next villager, she's going to have to wrap around, and that's going to take about half a second every time she drops off. Starofknight, on the other hand, have a look at this. He's got 3 villagers, now 4. They can all fit in that channel. Even the 5th villager, you can have up to 6 villagers with basically no lead time on their drop-off, which is what you want to aim for with any storehouse placement. In fact, you'll often see players even go up to 2 or even 3 storehouses around golds, sometimes even around berries. It's not that common. I'm probably one of the most known players for doing it, but it just makes the trips more efficient. So Star, aging up, has taken a dock. He's managed to squeeze this in. Nantrix aged up as well, and he has the wood to go for a dock, but I think he's going to try and rush out the town centre. Star's town centre is going to be a little bit slower to compensate. His age up is a little bit slower to compensate. I think Nantrix did a 13 vill age up, while Star also done 13, but he must have been a little bit slower on the oh no, yeah, 13, but he spent the initial wood on the dock, so he's just relying on these guys getting the 300 wood as he sends the villagers. This is really efficient play from him. He's only a little bit too early with this, but it's going to go down regardless. That's going to be like a 2 tile there, I think. But, I mean, at the same time, it puts him close enough that he really only needs like a storehouse over here, and he's got really efficient gathering on the camels as well. So Star, Nantrix going for a pretty similar opening. H2 Town Centre. But again, if this was 1 tile back this way, and 1 tile back this way, so 1 tile back from each, he'd be able to gather so much more efficiently. Because basically, he's only going to be able to fit 1 villager each side for optimal gathering of the resource, rather than up to about 5 or 6. Like I said, it's not huge, and really you're not going to notice a big gap until the mid-game, or until later in the mid-game. But it just means that Star's village is going to be slightly more efficient than Nantrix. The age up The second town center's all around the same sort of time. But Stars distance gathering on the first one, which isn't terrible, but at the same time, you tend to want to actually have your first one go on the closest. Then once your second one actually pops out, send your first to the distant spot for better line of sight. And really, you probably should do it on this top side rather than the bottom side, in my opinion. Because if he's going to get attacked by a warship, it's going to come from here. But at the same time, he's going to try and watch posted. He just needs to not lose a scout. But yeah, ultimately, the point of splitting up your fishing ships and taking that hit to your optimal gathering is to get as much intel as possible out of them. So this bottom side's not so bad because, I mean, your opponent can always hide a warship here, wait for your dock to really be saturated in that attack, but same time, you probably want intel on when he rushes in over here to be able to adapt and respond and overcome. Fast for him though, before any land military, so this is a bit greedy, but a really smart opt here because he knows that Nantrix is investing in the warship. He's going to keep probably investing in more warships to try and counter Stars, and it'll be a nice battle for the water here. But yeah, this means that Star can go for SPQR. As you can see, it really speeds up your eco. Basically means your town centers are going to train villages 10% faster and cheaper, and your gold gathering takes a huge buff because you're getting conservation and gather rate off the gold upgrades, and then SPQR amplifies that bonus gathering. Nice here. Nantrix is repairing the warship with villagers, then instantly tasking him back to another objective. So really quite a nice skill from him. He could do the same with his fishing ships. I wonder if he realizes that. Because it really sort of saves you having to interrupt your land economy and as much of your economy, because your fishing ships will repair a little bit faster, but they do gather 1-to-1 faster as well. So sometimes you got to sort of weigh up, do I send 1 or 2 fishing ships or 5 or 6 villages to repair this? And what are the odds that they get sniped? Like the fishing ships will tank 1 or 2 shots, villages are only going to tank one, like half of one. Nice water battle going on now though. So the players splitting their ships up, but also trying to get close to land shots and back away. Because you can dodge shots, you just need to be able to lead them. Ooh, Star. Having to pay attention to macro at home, getting some houses. Nantrix is going to have to do the same too. So that's the thing, you're constantly still ramping up production behind this, training villages, training warships, and eventually training military as well. Like Star's setting himself up to get Centurions or... oh sorry, Decurions behind this. Age 3, he might even get Centurions. So that's going to be a really quite quick Age 3 transition from him. I'm not seeing the Age 3 temple come out from Nantrix yet, but at the same time, it looks as though he's secured the water. Star hasn't got another warship in production yet, but maybe he's holding out to get a Nereus because they're going to be able to eat anything else in the water at the moment. So yeah, I think he's going to do that. Going to add probably... might even add a 3rd dock, we'll see what happens. But he really needs the wood to be able to do that, and he probably needs to throw down another wood storehouse here or here, and then retask everyone to just around it. Nantrix at the same time needs to do the same, probably get a wood storehouse here or here, and then send all the villagers to get as close as possible. Maybe even throw down a 2nd wood storehouse for both of them. But yeah, it's really hard to maintain every single aspect of aspect of macro while also taking good fights. So a lot of the time, unless you're the fastest, among the fastest players in the world, you've got to decide what's more important about what you're doing, as well as, you know, work on trying to play faster. We see Nereus coming out from Star. He needs more golden wood, so he's banking a little bit too much food. He can probably afford to send these guys straight to the wood and gold and then have his town centers on the food. So I think he's going to do that. He's going to reallocate some villages, not bother finishing that hunt. And he's already got Decurions on the way. Ooh, big hit. So that first dock went down and it had the Nereus in queue, so it's going to take the full 27 seconds to get another one out. And he probably needs to look at throwing down a 3rd dock. He might be able to get away with one up here actually. But he's got the Decurions in Nantrix's base, so Nantrix in a spot of bother now because he's only really got the one camel at the moment. So if these Decurions focus the camel down, they can go for villages as long as they want here, and Star just has to micro out away from the town centre. He's really interrupted Nantrix's gathering at the moment. Nantrix is housed, so probably needs to cancel some villages, get some camels in production, and throw down some houses. The Inaris has popped out in time, and a second one is going to be on the way. So Nantrix is in a huge spot of bother because the counter ship versus standard warship, it's just a straight up victory to the counter ship. And I think the Inaris is probably the strongest of them at the moment, especially because it doubles up as a siege ship as well. So Star really able to zone Nantrix into the center of his base at the moment. Nantrix just probably needs to throw down some more storehouses because they're really quite cheap compared to the value you get out of them. Well, I think lumberjack camps cost twice as much, take longer to build, and you just don't gather as fast in AoE 2. So that's why they're probably more hesitant in general, AoE 2 players, when it comes to getting multiple storehouses around a resource to fully saturate it. Whereas AOEO, it's sort of like, well, the only RTS where outright efficiency in your work account matters more is StarCraft 2, so... So Nantrix has lost the water here. Bit rough for him, but if he can manage a transition to a good number of camels, Axeman champion, maybe even throw in some spear champ, he can probably hold off and start to turn this around. But Star does have quite a big population lead over him now. It's 57 to 54 vil, so Nantrix's eco is looking really good, but does he have enough to defend? I don't know if he does, because these Decurions, they got plenty of pierce armor and they got plenty of health and that regeneration. Roman units in general, quite expensive but quite tanky. There's sort of, in terms of how you play fights, it's a lot like playing Norse, other than the fact that Decurions do slowly regen. It is quite slow though, it's only 1.5 a sec. I think it used to be 2 a second. And their pierce armor has been nerfed, so not quite the machines they once were. But I think Star is going to be able to go for a fairly greedy fortress. What's he going for the storehouse for? That's really bold. He's only just outside of vision here. Nantrix can shut this down. But Nantrix doesn't actually know. It's rough. He's lost water. There's still Inaris is patrolling the seas. So things... I think Star's even going to delete probably one of these and send the other to scout here, have one here. Really deny Nantrix's ability to gather the water. Temper coming out for Nantrix, which will be a really nice upgrade considering at the moment, before he's transitioned to chariots and before he's transitioned to LE archers, Egypt is a really melee-centric civ. And I mean, the Romans obviously quite melee-centric as well. Auxiliary camp on the way now, but until now on the land it's been pure melee. A lot of the civs have a really melee-oriented age 2, and even the civs that don't. In mirrors, you want to play their melee-oriented builds because then you can tech up faster. Carnage pointed out recently, and I actually really didn't notice until he said this, when you're investing into archery range heavy builds in Age 2, it's probably one of the things that really drags out your Age 2 the most. Because you're making that wood investment, not only the building but also the unit, makes your Age 3 transition and getting whatever tech you want in Age 3 really quite slow and difficult. Whereas if you can play a melee oriented comp, or in Greek's case like a ranged cavalry plus melee oriented comp with barracks stables, just like the civs where you normally play that composition, it lets you play your mirrors much faster out in terms of your tech. So we've got Nantrix going for a really nice raid, but at the same time he's having to deal with Star, and I don't know if Nantrix can afford to have this sacrifice. Well, Star might be able to just afford losing 10 villages here. I mean, he's already up 56 to 36 in terms of villages, so Nantrix is in a rough spot. Like, Star's got enough to really clean up all the production here, while Nantrix, as long as Star rallies units back to defend here, ooh, he's not doing that. I was going to say, if Star rallies back some units to defend here, he can clean this up with only about 15 units. Nantrix needs a whole army to try and defend this, and I don't know where he's going to get it from, considering everything is under attack. He's lost a lot of his units. It's down to 23 villages to 44 for Star, who's still losing villages. So I think Star's played this a little bit more aggressively than he possibly could have, but at the same time, I think he was confident that he just had that many units. He could overwhelm Nantrix at this point, because right now Star down to 44 villages, but Nantrix is down to 21 and about to lose both town centers. Really ballsy push here from Star, but I think he was really confident. He didn't have to really worry about dealing with this raid until now. Has finally sent the units too, and GG, Nantrix taps out.